Hello everyone. Thank you for joining into this session. This session is led by me and Siri. I'll spotlight her in just a second. Yeah, we would really like it if you can turn your cameras on because we would like to see your faces instead of just your names. And also if you want to get certificates for if you attended a lot of these sessions already, then we can provide you that only if you've turned your camera on. So yeah, that would be really helpful to us. Uh, I will now pass it to Anya, who will just give a quick introduction, and then we can just start with this session, which I think is really, really helpful for MUNers who want to get into crisis and other stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to the Teen Debaters fifth session in MUNing 101 series. So I'm Anya and we're so excited to have you all here today. Please don't hesitate to drop any questions you have in the chat during the session and we will definitely get back to you. The Teen Debater is an organization that is dedicated to revolutionizing the debate education, access and activity for schools and students across India. And we want debate to be a powerful tool for social mobility and change across the world and make it accessible for free. We aim to access your critical thinking, expand your worldview, but also go beyond debating and build an entire community. Your speaker for this session will be Siri from the management committee, and also Avira from the organization committee. And these are two exceptional MUNers from the Teen Debater community, and we hope you enjoy the session.
Yeah, yeah, again, we want engagement from your side. So please, if we ask questions, if we want to prompt you to stuff, to think, to know more about MUNs, because MUNs is a practical skill, please do that. And yeah, I'll just hand it over to Siri now, who is an expert MUNer, and she'll lead the session forward. Yeah, Siri, go ahead.
Thank you, Avira. And I'm so thrilled to be here and have you all here as well. Thank you for talking about the engagement part of it all, because I'd like to start with that. I want any one of you guys to tell me why you want to do MUNs. Why are you in this session right now? Why have you been looking at all the sessions so far? So why are you even learning about MUNs? If you can raise your hand, I will let you unmute. Anybody?
There's no reason why people want to do MUNs. Yeah,
Okay.
all right. Dave, you can go ahead. I'll just give you unmuting 1 second.
Yeah, I feel that I have an MUN coming up in the few 5 or 6 months, so I want to get prepared for that and have an edge onto the competition. So that's why I would like to attend this session today.
Great. Anybody else? I need to know why you are here right now. Why are you learning about MUNs?
If you don't answer, we'll randomly pick you. So it's better if you just step forward yourself so we can get.
Okay. Tanisha K. You should have the unmute pop-up coming onto your screen. There's Srishti Roy in the meeting. If you guys want to put in any inputs, that'd be great.
If you're shy to yeah, all right, Shrishti, go ahead.
I think it's like a really nice way to make to get ready for the month that we will be going for like this summer, and it helps to know what you're doing before you start into it, because most of our schools don't give us a really great input. So MUNing 101 helps that way.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the answer.
Thank
Something
you.
I did not hear, and I'm so happy I did not hear it, is that it's an extracurricular for your portfolio. Yes, it will make a great extracurricular for your portfolio, but that is not the only reason you have to do MUNs. And usually when we ask this question, almost everybody says it's great for colleges. But other than that, it's a very transformative tool, right? And it's going to be a powerful and educational experience you're going to have. If you could go to the first slide, please. Just a second, everybody. We can't see any change in the slides. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So yes, it's a very fun experience, right? So it's gonna equip you with like essential skills that you are definitely gonna need. It's gonna broaden your perspective. It's gonna prepare you for leadership. That is what we're all looking for, right? doing all the research you're going to do, constructing all those arguments in your conference, and like practicing so much of public speaking is going to change you inevitably. And it's going to build your confidence to an invaluable level. Okay, you are going to not understand or know the change that is happening, but it is going to happen. And everything you're going to learn during the conference is going to extend into your life. Basically, it's going to extend into your reality, your academics, your friendships, etc., and etc. And MUNs also work well if you're going into international relations, or you're really just thinking to do a bachelor's in one of that, etc. They'll basically give you a good understanding of like global issues going on. And in a world that's so connected like us, it's so important that you are aware of everything happening, and like everything that could happen as well. Especially, like, as I said, if you're interested in international relations, I have a friend who has gone up to Harvard MUN, who has now taken a bachelor's in international relations and wants to pursue that further, right? So along with that, these type of people you meet in MUNs, they're going to create a great network for you. This network can be used forever and ever for if you create a good connection, right? And we've talked at length about these connections in our previous sessions as well. And you have come this far into the MUNing series, meaning like you have that curiosity and to understand professionalism, right? And to understand this, mutual collaboration that happens. So congrats to you. But here's where your actual journey starts, okay? Could we go to the next slide? Right. So whether you are just now starting your journey or you've been in the circuit of MUNs for a while, you need to discover the right conferences for you, right? So start close to home, maybe. One of your most accessible ways to find MUNs is through your school. Many schools have like already established MUN clubs or MUN teams that like participate in other schools, regional MUNs or national MUNs even. And joining this MUN team of your school is a great way to get started, right? And these clubs in your school often have really experienced members and faculty. You can even approach and ask for like a bit of guidance on how to get in, on what's the requirement to get in. And obviously you can show that you have a lot of experience from the teen debater club, and yeah, that could really help you out, right? And it's a very important thing to get into these clubs, because having people around you who have the same goal as you is definitely going to bring you up in this circuit, okay? And it's kind of like a support group essentially, right? And yeah, you can check with like local high schools around you or universities in your area, because many of them host their own MUN annually. Okay, and these events are often like beginner friendly, and they actually are excellent to provide like a beginner friendly, learn the ropes type of environment for you. Okay. But not only physical, but online as well, like you are doing right now. There are so many resources to find the conferences around you. Websites like MUN Finder, websites like MyMUN, etc. They're going to allow you to find conferences based on location, dates, etc., etc. And of course, the Teen Debater. There was actually someone talking about an MUN happening in Gurugram in my Discord recently. So yeah, you can actually find a lot of opportunities through Discord as well. And social media, therefore, is like extremely helpful, more than I can ever express, okay? Because most of my circuit, I actually have the network connected through Instagram, because there's a lot of posts happening about like the registrations, the priority registrations, double delegation opportunities, etc., etc. And there's a lot of ways to find MUNs, because it's such a fast growing topic right now, and it's an activity that everybody wants to do, right? So take the initiative and find your options and get into it right now. Okay, moving on. Next slide. How to choose the right committee for yourself. So here's where the big question comes. When we're given so many choices, it gets so confusing, right? So selecting the right committee is like really crucial, as it like aligns your interests, your skills, but the topics and debates you will engage in, right? So ultimately, your overall experience of MUNs depends on this. It's really important to know your interests and strengths. So are you passionate about global politics, security, economic development, or social issues? Do you enjoy broad and like multifaceted debates, or more focused and technical discussions? Asking yourself all of this will help you like understand which committee you want to really specialize in, meaning you want to continue on again and again. You can of course explore multiple committees. That's how I did it, and that's how I found the committee I really liked through experience. But yeah, if we had to talk about it, the General Assembly has like a very broad range of topics. So if you're interested in like understanding very different and diverse topics and like debating on very diverse challenges in the society, you can go for GA, and you'll be representing your country with like a large number of delegates. GA is usually supposed to be a really big committee depending on what conference you're going to, right? So you need to have that dynamic and adaptability of talking to every single delegate and understanding and accommodating every single delegate. And people like this usually go for GA, right? So if you talk about the Security Council, it's a very, let's say, prestigious committee. It comes with a lot of issues of like international peace, security, global security, etc. A lot of the times the topic is usually AI, or Israel. A popular one right now is Israel and the war going on about there. Yeah. So of course, like depending on your conference, everything will change and the agendas will change and the delegations will change. Some committees may have Israel, some may not, right? So it all comes down to what you want to do and where your interest will lie. So if you look at the ECOSOC, we call it as Economic and Social Council, right? It focuses on majorly like international economical and social cooperation. Um, Topics or agendas that could be related to like maybe education, health, and gender equality. So if you have an interest in like economic, social sciences, and development policies, that's a huge thing in ECOSOC. This committee, because like this committee involves like drafting very comprehensive resolutions. They're more about like analyzing the policies about them. There's more understanding and targeting the policies by a few countries, etc., etc. Then we come to, specialized agencies like WHO and UNESCO. These are very specific as well. So let's say WHO. Its agendas may be about like health issues, COVID-19, health programs, new laws against medical related things, etc., etc. My favorite WHO I've been in was about abortion. So it completely depends on your interest again. And a lot of conferences don't release their agenda before the delegations, or do release it. So again, it's a great advantage if they do release it before, so you have a clarity on what countries you want to go for. But if they don't, again, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how you're going to have to choose your own country, right? There's a lot of requests coming in. Avira, if you could just, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, other than WHO, UNESCO, right? UNESCO would be all about educational access, culture preservation, etc. So it's going to need a lot of passionate debate. You need to be passionate about it. And that is why you need to like make sure that you match your skills with the committee and that you understand the committee size and dynamics. Okay. Next up. How to choose your priority country delegations. So, okay, guys, we lied in the session 4, we lied to you. Your research does not start once you are allocated into the MUN, but it starts before that. It starts now, right? So if you select the right country, you can actually have an extremely good time. It's really important to just research well about the potential countries and their like positions, their stances on global issues going on. So you're going to need to consider like their historical background, their diplomatic behavior, they usually what their stances are like on different types of issues, right? So if I had to give you an example, India is mostly neutral and never makes any concrete statements about the Russia-Ukraine war. But why? Why did India like continue to strengthen its relationship with Russia even after the sanctions placed on them? But Canada reacted by imposing multiple sanctions and condemning Russia, right? So what is the difference there? What type of stance are you looking forward to? Which country would you rather represent? Which would you rather defend properly, right? That is what you have to ask yourself. And you are eventually going to have to weigh out your options and understand the balance, right, between ambition and realism in your country selection by considering the country, by considering yourself, your experience, and your confidence for the country. Yes, you can choose a very high profile country, but you need to be prepared to be like one. Okay, high profile countries require quite a lot of preparation, especially if it's your first MUN. If I take United States as in my first MUN, not knowing the proper flow of committee could hinder a lot because US has a lot of power and US is known to make very effective decisions, right? So that's one thing. Many actually prefer to choose a country that aligns with their objectives and their ideas while also being quite noticeable in the forum for the first few minutes. People usually do that. But yeah, at the end, you need to make a very well-informed decision because that conference, you aren't going to be yourself. You are going to be the country that you're going to choose, right? Yeah, next slide, please. If we could go to the next slide. I think there's a technical issue, guys. 1 second. Okay, thank you. How to prepare for different committees. So basically for different committees, the preparation is kind of different. It's not very different in terms of ROP, which is rules of procedure, but the preparation will definitely be different according to your agenda and committee, right? So the process of how committees operate in MUNs can vary depending on like the size of the committee, the agenda, and specific rules set by the organizing conference and your executive board. But mostly overall, the rules of procedure is very well laid out. Okay. So for let's say General Assembly, you might need to research a lot, right? You're going to draft position papers and prepare your speeches, etc. But maybe for SC, which is Security Council, you may need to study like security issues, or you may need to like analyze the potential scenarios going on. You may need to understand what's happening regarding security and the newest technology for security and global security coming in, right? But yeah, that's why we say current affairs is so important right now. And you know, in ECOSOC, you may need to study the global economic trends going on, or you may need to know the latest sustainability news. You would also want to look into like the current affairs regarding social justice, let's say for ECOSOC, and you may have to target some policies regarding them in the conference, right? Or address how poorly or strongly they're supporting the issue at hand through your position paper or resolution. So it's going to help a lot if you look at everything as an overview before the conference or before the agenda as well. Specialized agencies usually need a good amount of like very diverse research with regard to whichever committee you're going to use. But for crisis committees, it's a lot of on-spot activity in crisis committees, but we'll get to that separately as well. Moving on. If you go to the next slide. Yep, thank you. Now you're going to be wondering, after all that we've discussed, you have to be patient for the agenda to come out, right? So once it does, you might be thinking, why was the above like everything we talked about necessary? Why was the previous research we did necessary? But it is, trust me, okay? You do not know when you're doing it, but in committee, you can definitely pull out a lot of this information you're going to research by quoting examples of like failed proposals you learned about, or when a ban did not help citizens positively but actually negatively, right? So you can pull up these examples when you're discussing or debating in committee. And now you are going to be just patient for the agendas to come out. But once it is announced, no matter when, you are going to go through the background guide provided by your executive board first and foremost. It is the most important document which arrives to you first, right? So the background guide is basically made to help you understand what the committee is about, to help you understand what the chairs want to see in the committee and what the committee should be discussing. So a lot of people actually bring out the moderated caucus topics from the background guide directly, right? Because the main themes that you need to be doing or discussing and debating will be in this one like document they are going to provide you with. And it's an important thing that many people miss, that you need to be structuring your speeches to align with these same themes, right? You cannot be looking a bit away from the background guide because the background guide was written by your EB, your executive board. And just this small point of trying to align your speeches and your points towards the background guide can favor you. Okay. And Now you can stay updated on that certain agenda after looking into all its context, right? And review everything about the past resolutions of that same agenda. Because something else you can do is like research into the official debates and sessions done on the agenda, along with like talking to your peers who have attended an MUN with the same agenda, more or less, right? So all of this is going to help you understand the common approaches or strategies that's going to occur in the MUN. No matter what, these common strategies are going to repeat, right? So you can build off of them, and it's going to be a great boon when like you are doing your own preparation, constructing your own arguments, knowing this is the certain strategy that might come up next, this is the certain topic that might be discussed next, is going to help you quite a lot. Moving on. Okay, so of course you've come this far for the same. For understanding the MUN format, right? So we've discussed this at length in like all of our sessions so far, but familiarizing yourself with these procedures and guidelines is going to help you immensely when in committee. But again, you do not need to remember all of these now itself, because for a lot of first time delegates, yes, we know it's going to be so overwhelming, but you will get accustomed to it eventually and master the ROP with practice, right? The more MUNs you go to, the more well you're going to understand these rules of procedures and the flow of debate, etc. So, but in committee though, as I've already said in session 1, if you have a question about the ROP, you can definitely raise a point about it and ask the ED, and they'll gladly help you out. Okay. So if you do like want a really detailed explanation of the ROP again, you can definitely revisit those sessions, to which we have a YouTube video, and I think we'll be dropping the YouTube link as well, right? And yeah, if you listen to those, I promise you, me and Avira will help you be completely prepared for your first MUN. We talk a lot about how we begin the conference, how we reply to roll call, what impact the roll call has, how we go into the general speakers list. Then we raise motions for the moderated or unmoderated caucuses. There will be a vote for that. And if it passes, we move into one of those. In moderated, you'll basically give your country's name to speak on the topic of the moderated caucus. And yeah, the topic is going to be more branched out than the agenda. And in unmoderated caucus, you're going to lobby and you're going to talk to the delegates, build connections, create or join blocks, right? And once you do, you'll be moving into the drafting of the final document of the committee, joint statements, etc. And then moving into the discussion of the same document, and then the documents written by others, and finally voting for these documents, right? So out of these final documents, whichever passes is going to be the committee's resolution and final document. Now, I have just said it in a like really fast, and it's okay if you didn't understand, because we have a very detailed A to Z session on it as well, as I've mentioned. So yeah, I think now I'll be passing it on to Avira to tell you how do you specifically relate your country to your committee's agenda, right? And how do you gather information relating to the both of them? Avira? Mm,
Hello?
yes, you're audible.
Yeah. All right. So wait 1 second. Someone in the waiting room. Yeah, so I think we can go to the next slide, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
1 second. Let me just spotlight myself so that I'm visible. Yeah. So let's then talk about what we're going to do after we've known all of this, right? Just to give a quick summary of everything we've done. And by the way, if you think we're talking way too broadly about stuff and we're not covering specific things, just know that we've done, this is a series, this is like the 5th of a series. So if you want to know, okay, how do I write papers, or like how do I do this, or what are the main rules of procedure, like how they even work, I highly encourage you to go to our YouTube channel where we've uploaded all of these videos. Again, you can watch them, really know more about your committee, how these specific things work, and go into depth. This is just a broader overview of MUNing that we just kind of want to close with, right? So then again, A to Z about your country with regards to the agenda. And when I mean A to Z, I mean A to Z, right? So not just look at your country's stance, but also your country's history of that stance, or countries, like different countries' views on that stance. Like, don't only think in the perspective of your country, think of how other countries view your country. And in that sense, this means going through long research reports. This means going through UN's official website. This means to going through previous speeches made by leaders, which seems like a lot, but like school, we have to like end up, pushing through and really make a broad, like detailed understanding, because you're a delegate of the country, you're a representative of a country. When you're representing a whole country, you'd probably know a lot about it. Then drafting your introduction paper is a really good way to kind of get beforehand on how you're going to be there. A lot of um actually, a lot of committees don't allow you to have like pre-proposed solutions, so just check your committee guidelines. But if they do, or if it's not specified anywhere that they don't allow it, then this is great, because then you can already, when you're starting to form blocks, you already have like, hey, I want to implement this, and I have like the statistics for it, the data for it, the sponsors for it, so here you go. Or like just have a basic plan in your head, or like somewhere noted down where you can implement it to your position paper. Because at the end of the day, speeches and all aside, the main purpose of you being in an MUN is to like look at your country's interests and get that position paper like passed. So that's really what it's about, and you should really focus on kind of looking at policies that would be really good. Like, for example, if you're working on the environment, start looking at environmental policies. Like, people are looking into nuclear energy or solar energy, or do you not care about the environment, or what? So create really specific data points and all of that in like a one place, and you can store all those data points in your research binder. Again, you need to use credible sources. Don't just pick it up from some random, subreddit or some post or a blog. Please pick it from like official UN posts, post by your like local media networks, from the government itself, because again, you're going as a representative of the government, and government officials use credible sources. So make sure that's all in place, and then you can really step into your first MUN. So this is kind of like a checklist you can take off before you start that first MUN, or any MUN for that matter of fact. We can go to the next slide. Nanika, next slide. Yeah, all right. So what is after this, right? When you're in the MUN, before actually in your MUN, there's a few more things that you can do. Just prep, familiarize yourself with other people's foreign policy. Like, for example, what I like to do, especially if I'm a small nation, is I like to keep a list of countries I really want to talk to. Like, okay, as Lebanon, I have good relationship with US, so I really want to talk to US, but I would really like to talk to Israel as well, and I would really like to talk to this. So while keeping a list of countries you like to talk to, and also a list of countries you would kind of want to avoid, because you can't go online and just search Lebanon enemies, because you know that there's going to be a lot of bias in that. Just kind of look into the foreign policy and just see historically where people have been off, or ideologically, like China and US are ideologically very clashing in nature. That's why they don't have, as except like with trade, a lot of like ideologically they don't agree with a lot of stuff. So that's why you need to like prep yourself with those foreign policies, so as soon as you get into your unmoderated caucus, you know what to say, you know who to talk to, you know how to interact. Because if you're just looking for people who's like anybody who'll accept you, then you're not really thinking from the mind of your country. You're thinking of the mind of someone who wants to win an MUN, which I mean you should do, but you should also just look at what is the most beneficial for your country. So if your country lacks funding, then go to a rich country. If you're a rich country, then go to a poor country so you can give funding and you can appear as like a good country. This is oversimplified to like a very bare bones level. Don't take this as a rule of thumb, but I'm just saying familiarize yourself with other countries, because you need to know what they're doing as well in an MUN, because you don't want to seem completely lost when one country is saying something. And that's a really good way to rebuttal. Like, if a person of a country is talking about something that's completely against their foreign policy, you can immediately raise a point and be like, that's not what your country is talking about. So yeah, this is the second point, which is leading important conference like points when you want to talk about in the conference. um Make sure, like, for example, if you're working on the environment, like I want to push for solar energy, so in all like my speeches or somewhere, I'm going to talk about solar energy, because that's the main aim as a country. I have a lot of sun, it's very cheap for my population, I have manufacturing for it, so I'm going to talk about solar energy. And then make sure you do it, make sure you talk, like walk the talk. So that's really important for you to do. Also, like, that keeps you like kind of on track, because whenever there's a new type of question or moderated caucus that comes, you know what to answer, you know what to bring up. Because you already know at points like, okay, if I'm, for example, as you were talking about abortion, like, oh, if they're going to talk about, the effect on the mother's body, I'm going to bring up this up. If they're going to talk about the morality of this, I'm going to bring this up. So you already just kind of keep a web of stuff that you're going to bring up on like the most predictable topics that are likely to come in MUN. Like if you're going to talk about sustainable resources, fossil fuels are going to end up coming in the conversation. Like we know that. So it's very important to prep that up. Third is like preparing your GSLs. Again, this depends on your committee's policy. A lot of times they don't allow you to prepare GSLs before, or like keep them printed out. I mean, you can write them down, but like not printing them out. But a GSL, for those who don't know, is a general speakers list. It's like basically giving an introduction to your country, like your stance and what you really think about the issue. Like a very introductory speech. We've also covered GSLs in our previous session, and yeah, I would like Anya, if she's not already posted, to just talk about our Discord as well. So a lot of these resources, like on how to prepare GSLs, we send daily resources every single day. And I've seen resources talking about how to make a really good GSL used from different sources and experiences. So make sure to go check that out. And if you're from our Discord, hello, we really appreciate you being there. And yeah, so GSLs there's a specific format to it, and prepping it beforehand just takes, the weight off your shoulders when it comes up. And lastly is also just to prepare like a few moderated caucus topics. So for example, it's talking, you're in UNHC and you're Ukraine. So you want to talk about the Ukraine and Russia war. That's like a moderate caucus. Like obviously there's a larger topic at hand, but for example, you want to talk about aid. You want to talk about how you want to get aid. So always raise your hand in mod caucus as topics, because you never know when you'll get picked. And if you get picked, you'll guarantee have a chance to speak, and a guaranteed chance of speaking means more notice from the judge and a more likely chance to win. So just for everyone who hasn't been, a good rule of thumb, always raise your placard. No matter what the mod caucus topic it is, no matter if it's proposing a mod caucus, no matter whatever it is, no matter if it's a point, whatever, always raise your placard, because otherwise you'll be forgettable in the chair's mind. So already keeping mod caucus topics on like hand will make you so much more impressionable, so much more eloquent, and like knowing that you know a lot about the topic as compared to other people who are scratching their heads thinking about mod caucus topics. So this is just a really good way to move forward in MUN. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. Now we've talked about these things in vaguer terms before, but now we're going to cover something we've never talked about before in a series or, as a teen debater, which is crisis committees, right? To give it simply to people who don't know crisis committees are different from, like UNHC or like all of these normal MUNs where, you're given, for example, like predetermined topics of past revolution. So for example, you're in the Great Depression, or you're somewhere, in a crisis of some sort. You're like, in the liquidity bubble, or like you're post 9/11 or something like that. And now you are in this past period of time, and you're reenacting people who were important players during that time. So maybe, for example, if you're talking about, a different sort of crisis committee where something historical, then maybe someone's a general, maybe someone is the president, maybe someone is the advisor, maybe someone is the opponent, and all of that. And crisis committees are like mixing MUNs with like a soap opera, and it's like a beautiful combination that comes about. And yeah, you can, in the main reason why it's called crisis is because when you're in the Great Depression, it doesn't just happen in one day. So you have frequent time skips going on in your crisis committee. So for example, it's this year, then 2 years later what happens, and 2 years later what happens. And in those time skips, your chair will give you new problems that occur. So even if you, for example, solved one policy, there's an entirely new policy you need to focus on. And oh my God, someone just bombed your country and this and that. And it's like constant action that's taking place. And although there are crisis updates that take place in normal MUNs as well, in crisis committees, it's ramped up to 1,000, and like there's fewer people, there's more scrambling. And there's just so much more to explore in crisis committees. I've done a crisis committee before, which talked about like an economic crisis that took place in the US. And I was a treasurer, and in the middle of the crisis, I got killed. So that really tells you how fun crisis committees can be, because yes, people do get murdered in crisis. Not actually. People get imprisoned, people get sent to jail, people get demoted and then come back as new characters. So it's really fun. It's really fun. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so research for crisis committees is really different. Okay, we'll talk more about crisis committees in upcoming sessions because there's not a resolution, there's more uh like different types of letters and policies that you do, and all of those formats we'll talk about later. But basically, to give a little overview of crisis committees, because a lot of people advise people to not take crisis as the first time MUNer. But my first MUN was a crisis in my school, where we did it in like inside our school and crisis. And I did pretty well in that, and it was my most fun MUN I've done ever. So yeah, crisis committees are just a joy. So I mean, don't let your experience limit yourself in crisis. Obviously, it requires more effort, but it's also lesser competition, because usually in crisis committees there are a maximum of like 15-20 people. Like a very interesting crisis my friend went to and I prepped her up for was partition in India. And I think she was this character called Baldev Singh, and she had to represent Sikh voices and all of that, and there was so many like different perspectives that she had to take into. And there was Gandhi and there was Nehru and there were so many different people. So that's what it's really like. You have to role play at these characters, but you can make different decisions. Instead of what Nehru actually did, you can do something completely different from what Nehru actually did. And that's what gives you the power and like the way to really explore crisis committees. So let's talk about researching crisis committees. I don't know why country is written there. I'm sorry, but research your role. You don't represent a country in crisis committees, you represent a person. And with crisis, what's different is that you don't need to only research their stance on things. You need to research their personality, you need to research how they used to act on. Thank you for changing that. Yeah, so you need to know how they used to act. Like, did they be a stoic person? Did they used to be very reserved, or did they used to attack? Like, what were their policies? Were they capitalist? Were they socialist? Like, what did they want to do? What were their larger goals for the country or for the time? You know a lot of times you have a person who is pretty corrupt, so maybe they're only acting for their own self-interest, and how that plays out for them. So yeah, that gets to the second point, which is understanding the historical context, right? You need to look at it from a very, very in-depth way, because if you want to research on Nehru, you can't just read one Wikipedia page and call it a day. Watch videos, know more about him, know about his earlier life, what influenced him, what lead him to this dynamics to make his choices, and make figures, treaties, agreements, etc. Like, what did Nehru want to do as a person? Of course, it doesn't mean you have to completely like role play if you're that role. You can, make different decisions, you can make wiser decisions, you can make, act differently, but it always gives you like an understanding of how things go. And then this historical context is not just on your character, but other characters as well. I'm referring to the characters, but they're actual people, they're actual historical figures. So knowing about what were their goals, who were your main oppositions, who were your main supporters, who could you group with, like historically, who were your friends and foes. That's really important to know, because if you're partnering with the like opposite side, then that shows really bad to a child, because that means you understand none of the historical context. And lastly is the main crisis. In the partition, the main crisis was the partition, the British rule, etc., etc. In like the Great Depression, the main crisis is economic downturn and the recession that's taking place. So you need to understand that main perspectives, and then consider how you can solve that issue. But you can't just solve that issue with one or few policies. You need to see, if this happens, what does that happen, because again, there's not one problem. There'll be a starting problem, there'll be a starting overall broader view, and then the chair will throw and make up new problems at you. So for example, you solved the Great Depression for some period of time, the chair will throw another like completely different issue that doesn't actually historically exist, but to challenge you, to make you like compete more. Also, just know that crisis committees are completely unlike normal MUns, because anything can happen. Again, I've gotten imprisoned and killed in a crisis committee and then come back as a new company. So that really shows that you can't fit to a box. So that's why it's really important to really understand the historical context of things. And just a little tip, if something like that happens to you, which usually is by the discretion of the chair, that doesn't mean you're doing bad. I got third in that MUN, which I was pretty proud of, because it was my first. But taking on those challenges and failing and trying again is really what makes crisis so unique. Because there's just so much to do. And if you think normal MUNs are hard, try crisis, because there are 12 people, there are 3 chairs, and they're all staring at you. You have to make more and more speeches, and there's going to be really interesting sorts of crises. There can be crises in the future as well. So I actually was Vivek Ramaswamy, who was a current US presidential candidate for the Republican side, for the 2028 US elections. So it was under the notion that Biden got admitted, like got president once again, and it's 2028, and Trump got out, and we had to create like a future election, and I got selected as the main candidate from the Republican side, and there was a Democratic committee as well. There were two different committees, and then we had like a political debate. So like that's how like how they can be in the future, they can be past, they can be about politics and so many interesting stuff. And I, as Vivek Ramaswamy, wasn't the most morally just person. No, I was threatening people, but at the end of the day I got the job done, and by the end of the MUN I was the most exhausted I've been in my entire life. So crisis committees, I personally prefer them a lot, but they are a lot of effort and require a lot of time and research. So just know what you're getting into before you do crisis. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a slight different in flows again. So there's crisis directors. So again, what's different from a chair is a crisis director. So a chair is a person who judges you, but a crisis director is the one who's creating updates, who's saying, oh, so you did this policy, so this happened. Oh, because of this policy, this country ko ye ho gaya, and this happened, and this happened. So there's a person kind of navigating what is happening, and the crisis director, so they're the ones creating the scenarios and the like updates, and then the chair is the one who's marking you and how you respond to the scenarios and updates. So there's a difference there. And crisis directors are very smart people, and when you finally think you're doing well and you've solved all the problems, crisis director, boom, another huge problem. Then there's rapid response, right? So crisis directors, they're designing and overseeing the crisis committee. So they have to really quickly like respond to crisis like updates. For example, to give an example of when I was doing my presidential election, where I won in that MUN, by the way, as Vivek Ramaswamy, we used to get crisis updates in the forms of newsletters. So what our crisis director would do, he would quickly whip up a newsletter that this happened, and then this happened, and that's the way he communicated to us about what's going on in the world and how our policies have been taking place. Other crisis directors just say it out loud. Other crisis directors send you letters about crisis updates. So it's just really, really different and unique. And there's just talk about different ways. So there's crisis directives. So instead of for example, putting out a resolution as a block, a crisis directive is usually done by one or two people, or maybe even more if you're like representing a allyship, who give solutions to that particular crisis. So in the different crisis updates that come, you give multiple crisis directives on like one huge one at the end, because you need to immediately solve the problem. So you keep on writing crisis directives. Then secondly is news reports. I did this in my first MUN I was talking about, where we were talking about a financial crisis that took place in the US, where I drew comic strips describing how the US is falling behind and they're ridden in debt. And I published that as a news report. So then the crisis director will be like, anonymously, this has been shown on the New York Times today. And then the New York Times will show, like the your article that you wrote, or the like publication that you wrote. Intelligence briefings again are just talking about like different knowledge-based things to like other delegates in this. And then lastly is communiques, which is a really unique part of crisis, because communiques, see, for example, I'm talking about impartition, and I want to contact the president of the United States, but he's not a part of the partition. So what I can do is I can write letters to people outside committee. I can write letters to people who existed at the time outside committee. And then my crisis director will reply to that letter, like acting as if they are that person. So that's what makes like crisis so unique, because you can go like you can stretch it to your imagination. Even if you want to do something with someone who's not there in committee, just try to communicate to them. Just like write as if you're actually talking to them and they're outside committee, like they're not actually there, but you can still talk to them through the chair. Which is why there needs to be the chair even just for 12 people, because there's just so much going on. And lastly is the crisis updates that we've been talking about. They just talk about new challenges, like escalating existing crisis, or like, okay, the crisis is over, but this is happening now. And then we're like, what? How is this happening? And yeah, this is done by the crisis directors. So that's what crisis is about. It is really a state of crisis in your head as well, but it's the most fun thing, because you can do so much crazy stuff that you could never have done to normally in like normal MUNs. Like you can just to give a small example, don't take this too seriously, but when I was doing my presidential election crisis, one of the person accused the other person of having an affair, and then that was like a topic that we discussed on in committee. They didn't win. That was not a bad thing. That was not a good thing to do. But there can just be a lot of things that are going on in crisis, which is what makes them so interesting. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. So position papers and research documents, right? So again, like others, crisis committees also typically required to submit like a position paper outlining the person's, not country stance. But I've had like like you talk about the country stance. For example, if I was running for president, what was my presidential campaign like plan and stuff, and it serves as a foundation for the chair to know how much you know about your character and about like the overall situation. The format is usually mostly the same, but then again, you usually talk about personal pronouns and stuff, and like you talk more in depth and also just from the perspective of one person. And yeah, that's what position papers and research documents look like. And lastly, you can also like with normal MUNs, you should keep a thick research binder with quotations and statistics. And for example, if I did an economic council and I didn't know that much of economics, so I wrote down in research economic policies that could have helped during the Great Depression, for example. So yeah, those are really helpful in potential responses to crisis, because usually you don't get access to the internet, so it's all from the top of your head. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, final documents. Yeah, again, there are different types of documents that need to take place. There's a lot of resolutions that need to take place. There might be an overall larger resolution, there might be no larger, it's just crisis updates and like crisis directives. So the documents you're writing and speaking the whole time, because in a normal MUN you have like 200 people. In a crisis you have 12. So you are paid more attention and you need to do more. So you're competing interests, and you're competing with very advanced people as well, because crisis is a bit more advanced than normal MUNs, because it requires more managerial skills. So yeah, it just requires a lot of collaboration and flexibility. So you need to keep on writing, keep on setting directives, keep on sending communiques, talking with people. Even if you have nothing going on, just communicate with someone else and further push your agenda. So that's why crisis committees really adapt all of that. And if you're up for a challenge, if you want to really experiment with that and evolving circumstances, then please go ahead, because crisis is so much fun. But if you think you would like to start off somewhere a bit easier, a bit mellower, with more larger people, then start off with a normal MUN. But please do give out a crisis a shot at least once, because it's truly so different from normal MUNs. Yeah, we can go next slide. Yeah, so again, this is just how to start your MUN journey, because we didn't make this really clear. So like, how do we know about all these MUNs and stuff? Firstly is joining communities, societies, and clubs. You can follow our Instagram account and other Instagram accounts which talk about updating you on different MUNs that are taking place in your locality and like your city. Also, you can ask like your college counselor or your school if they're organizing or know about MUNs. Then there's websites like my MUN and Instagram, really, because if you go on Instagram, you can find so many MUNs. And if, in case you don't have Instagram, just use it from your parents' account. And you can just be a part of more conferences, because if you don't practice, if you practice once a year, then you won't be good, because there are people going to conferences multiple times a year. Third, which is the most important, every time you meet someone in an MUN outside committee, ask for their number, keep their WhatsApp number in tune. So maybe if you want to do a double delegation in the future and they're really good, you can network with them, or if they know about any MUNs, they can update you. So every time from an MUN, at least get the number of like 10-15 people who you can network with and you can understand with. And maybe if you meet them, yeah, they'll just help you in life. Networking is a good thing to do in life. So just keep people's network, like numbers and all, who know more about MUNs than you, so they can help you, because most people are willing to help and you could talk to them, maybe make more friends, but also they'll tell you more about upcoming MUNs in your area and all. And yeah, lastly is to explore specialized areas. So what's really interesting about MUNs is that you really act like an expert of that delegate, so like expert of that country. So if I'm in an economic council, I should know about economics. I should know how it works, what's demand, what's supply, what's macroeconomic aims of the government. Like I should know that stuff before I go. I mean, it's not necessary, and a lot of people win without it, but it just gives you that, again, edge over other people. So knowing about specialized areas in your free time, just watching, crash course videos, for example, is a really, really good way to get to know about those specialized areas. And of course, a bit of a self plugin, but you need to stay tuned in with the TTD Club. We'll help you a lot. You can personally message me or Siri on Discord by adding our name on the community. If you have any specific questions, if you want to help or prep with your MUN, if you want a specific resource, daily resources are posted. So much stuff is going on with the club, so that's a really good way. And there's also a lot of people who are passionate about MUNs in the Discord server. We have hundreds of people on a Discord server, and they all want to do debates and MUNs. So you can network to people, ask, oh, is everyone in Bangalore who wants to do this MUN? And maybe you can get responses and you connect, because that's what this community is really about. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of effort, but at the end of the day, you get such a rewarding and satisfying feeling of getting your directors passed, or your larger block to be the one that gets their thing passed. So yeah, it's a really enjoyable experience, and it really teaches you life skills, as Siri was telling about, how to talk, how to write, how to negotiate, how to act a bit sly sometimes when you need to, and really look at things, but also be a team leader, also look at other people's perspectives, also help other people out. And that's why MUNing is such a great journey, and at any level, like beginner, advanced, whatever, it's just a really good thing to start. um we can go to the next slide. I think it's the last. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's it. I hope you got something out of the session. We look forward to seeing you in other ones. Again, the start links are there. You can email us, you can talk to us, you can join our community, maybe help us out making a few of these PPTs and sessions, and help us coordinate stuff, which is also really good for meeting new people and just expanding your interest. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you all. Nayanika, you can stop presenting. Thank you so much for presenting. Um, Now we can, if you want to like take time to ask questions, final thoughts, then we're willing to do so. Otherwise, you're free to leave. So yeah, thank you so much.